Get straight into it now. Holly Hughes, who is fresh from another day, breathing in the joy of the greens. So much so. Oh, you love it, don't
That's
you?
right.
And Joe Hildebrand, of course, you can find his podcast on the Nova Player. Let's get into this right now. The documentary that we just saw tonight and about cost of transition. Holly, this has always been the central issue, all right? Now, are there some people who say climate change doesn't exist and therefore it as a reason for anything is not a reason to be dealt with? I'm not one of those people, and to those people, good luck to you. However, we have been sold a pup for as long as we have been told that we need to change the way that our energy system works. Our energy is more expensive than anywhere else around the world, in part because we are moving from the car that could win Bathurst, and we're being told that the three-wheel car might win Bathurst, but quick, get into it now. The reality is CSIRO says $500 billion, green groups say $1 trillion. All of that gets paid for by the customer.
Absolutely. Now, look, I'm going to have to put my hand up. I've actually been at a dinner tonight, so I didn't get to watch most of the documentary. I did grab probably the last 10 minutes of it, and I've read some of the articles around it and seen the previews today. So I apologise for that, but the parliamentary work was not yet complete, so I was not able to just sit down in front of the telly with a glass of wine. But let me tell you, everything that I heard Chris Uhlmann say was completely and utterly spot on. And it's what we've been talking about for a really long time. It's the deception of not only the government but all the agencies behind it, and those reports and reviews that they have been relying on when they talk about the cheapest form of energy. What they don't talk about is the transmission lines, and this is something that we have been talking about for a really long time. The extra 10,000 kilometres of transmission lines required as we build an entire new grid for this renewable wind solar fantasy. And of course, distribution, transmission is a very big chunk of your power bill, but no one wants to talk about that. The other thing is, you know, I know we're probably going to talk about it later, or I know Joe and I talked about it last night, Albanese's relationship with China. Albanese is not President Xi. He does not determine that a new power line will go through in this direction and anything that's in its way gets out of its way. In Australia, we have lots of councils, we have lots of community groups, and we have lots of things that mean that we're putting kinks into these transmission lines. And every single kink we put in costs an extra $1 million. So if we've got to go round a property, we've got to go round a bridge, we've got to go round a river, whatever we've got to do, $1 million. So it's an absolute furphy. I hope that people do watch it because it's important they understand that they are being sold a pup and they are going to pay more and more and more.
And with this, skynews.com.au, the place to find it. Joe, again, we've sat here and had the conversations about, you know, what is needed, what is all the... You know that I've sat here for 10 years and talked about cost of transition, right? And Bill Shorten couldn't answer it, so he turned around and said, the cost of not doing it equals... The reality is, every time I've debated it with Nicholas Rees, anyone else, it's like, OK, cool, be honest about the cost. This government has never turned around and said, look, for us to move from this system to that system in order to save this much when it comes to greenhouse gases will be X $100 billion. Instead, they turn around and say, well, once it's built, everything's cheaper. That's one hell of a pole vault trick that they are trying to pull off. And I think what Chris was able to excellently show tonight was just how big a leap there is before we get to Neverland.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think it was a fantastic documentary and just so clear-eyed. I love Chris Uhlmann. I think he's someone, much like myself, who people sort of struggle to sort of pigeonhole. I'm not half the journalist he is, but he's one of those people who was seen, I think, very much as an apostate from people on the left who thought, he's ABC, he must be a green left socialist. And then when he applies a bit of scepticism to Dan Andrews and the COVID lockdowns and restrictions...
Well, and you watch the reaction
applies it to climate change. That's right. They go, oh my God, we have to take him out the back and shoot him. So I love him. I was actually speaking to him about this a few weeks ago, and he has put so much effort into this. He came on the podcast and talked about a little bit of it, and basically made me feel very, very grateful because he was just neck deep in this stuff. And I think the results speak for themselves. Having stuck my head in it with the Mission Zero series that we ran for News Corp that I kind of led, there's a couple of things that are really clear here and really problematic. First is a sort of lack of honesty and a lack of transparency, if you like, because the people who have ideological carriage of this basically want to control both the energy sources and the debate around it from an ideological point of view. Now, that has meant that that nuclear has not been allowed into the debate, and it means gas has been demonised as much as coal. Now that is absolutely outrageous from any rational point of view, and this is where ideologues make the perfect the enemy of the good. The truth about what the cost will be is we don't know. Anyone who tells you what the exact cost, that they know what the exact cost of transition is going to be, is lying.
But anyone who says, don't worry about it, there's 500,000
No, that's right. But I suppose even the huge discrepancy between, the cost that Labor first put on it and then this modelling by Frontier, I think it was, commissioned by the coalition, I'm not sure. But again, you can commission any type of modelling you want, and you can get basically the numbers you want, and depending on how you slice and dice it, it will be huge and unaffordable, or it'll be just fine, mate. The truth is, we should be honest and say we actually don't yet have the technologies that will get us to net zero if we get there. We don't know if hydrogen's going to be viable. We don't know if we are going to perhaps have to rely on nuclear. And absolutely, and again, there have been people who have been saying this all along, and people I love who on the left who are just saying, no, we absolutely cannot countenance nuclear and we cannot countenance gas. The refusal to embrace gas as a medium-term energy supply is insane, and that is actually forcing more CO2 into the atmosphere, because the absence of gas generators means that coal-fired generators are filling that gap. Now, that is something that should keep every single die-hard, one-eyed greenie up at night, but they're too effing stupid to even realise that that's what they're doing. So again, we have to be pragmatic, not ideological.
Yeah,